So today I thought that with an audience like this, I'd like to discuss the Buddhist conception of mental health, and more or less following our little discussion with one of your members here, Mr. Hugh, just now, is it? Now, to begin with, let us have a brief review of the usual kinds of conceptions of mental health that you find today. As you know, when someone has a headache, then usually he or she will take an aspirin. And when that is over, he's said to be, or she's said to be healthy. Right? And in more serious cases, if you have a physical ailment, you go to the doctor, you get a medicine, or you stay in the hospital for a few days or for any period of time, you come out and you're said to be healthy. And we also think that we are all healthy. And this is the usual way of looking at health. And I'm going to tell you that Buddhism has quite a different way of looking at it very soon. But I'd like to say that this kind of conception of health, in fact, is based on what is called a Cartesian concept of dividing the human being into the physical body and the, what shall I say, I suppose in other religions or in Western terminology we would call it the soul, but Buddhism would not use that term, the mental or the spiritual aspect of the being. So in this split manner, a person is supposed to be treated and cured. That is why when someone is sick, the doctor doesn't look at his mind, or at least generally doesn't do so until very recently. What he does is look at his body only. And this may be called also the concept of the machine on the one hand and the soul on the other. It's like a car, when the car breaks down, well, what do? You locate the particular spare part, the particular part of the car that needs to be replaced. So you take it out, you wash it, you do something about it, you replace it, and that is fixed up. So it seems that so far Western medicines and also medicine now in the East, apart from traditional medicine, that is to say, follow these kind of ideas for so many years, looking at the being in a dualistic manner, in a Cartesian manner. When something is wrong, the body is examined and some medicine is given, and when that symptom goes away, or when that particular kind of pain or suffering goes away, he is said to be healthy and cured. But even scientists who do not have any spiritual training today, the medical scientists, have come to realize among themselves, some of them, and often realize that this is very limited indeed. His approach is very unsatisfactory. They find that, for instance, there are many diseases about which they cannot pinpoint the particular organic cause, the physical cause of the illness. And so there has been a concept, I think, for many years now of psychosomatic illness. That is to say, an illness that is linked up not just with the physical body but also with the mind as well. In fact, some more radical scientists, some more radical medical practitioners go so far as to say that for every physical disease, there could well be a parallel mental event going on, which we don't know, which is not to say not scientific. It's only perhaps that the scientific model, the medical model of mental health, of mental illness, is still to be studied, is still to be modified, to be improved on. Apparently, I think, if I'm not mistaken, there is a circle of medical doctors in Vienna, is it correct? I think, who pay special attention to this. They are trained not only in medical practice in the usual way. After their medical degree, it seems that this circle of doctors have to go through psychological training also. And today you find that even in America, in the Western countries, when a doctor finds a disease or sickness very complicated, he will refer the patient to the psychological counselor or to the psychiatrist. I know this is done even in many Asian countries. I'm sure it's also done here to some extent in Malaysia. So all this points to show that in medicine there is a growing awareness of the limitation with regard to the concept of health, the concept of illness, the concept of cure. And slowly now, among some of the most radical physicists and doctors, and also psychiatrists, psychoanalysts, they have evolved a theory called the holistic theory, or the holistic approach. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. That is to say, a phenomenon, in this case a human being, is to be approached in a holistic manner, is to be approached as a whole, not as parts, or just a sum total of parts. It is certainly much more than that. Certainly a human being can be broken down into parts just like a car can be, just like a house can be. But then, the sum total is a lot more than that. For one thing, it has an organizing principle. It can organize itself. You see? So, now they come to realize among these most radical leading scientists in medicine, especially, and some in physics, like David Bohm and what is the other name who wrote the Tower of Physics? Visual Capra, that's right. Eh? They come to realize and they come to emphasize that we now should approach the holistic, we should take the holistic approach. Not only in medicine, in fact, even in economics, even in every section of our life, of society. So in this approach, a man is treated as a whole. When something goes wrong, it's not only the body that is examined, it's not only the physical symptoms, but his mental background. And now, even in the less traditional psychiatric treatments, you have things like the Gestalt psychoanalysis, you see, and even people like Jung and Fromm, they go far beyond just analyzing in the usual way as what, say, the earliest like Freud and others would have done, the earliest psychoanalysts. They go into even religion, the man's religious need, the man's existential need, his need as a man, as existent in time and space. The needs that are rooted in his very existence. And sometimes these are called meta-needs. I don't know whether you come across this term. Popularized by Maslow, Abraham Maslow. Meta-needs. They are not just ordinary needs that we have, like food and, and other things like even sex and drink and all that, or clothing, shelter. But needs that may be called spiritual. More than that, hence metta. And he also talks of metta motivation. In other words, we are not just motivated like when we see food, we are hungry, we like to eat, oh, this is nice, this is tasty, A child is motivated by, say, a reward. Not like that, but he says, and I think quite acceptable Buddhism, he says that we have what is called metta motivation. We are motivated for truth. We are motivated for perfect beauty. We are motivated for all kinds of spiritual values. So these people are quite well aware. And coming back to this type of psychoanalysis, when someone goes wrong mentally, they also examine the mental situation of the whole family. That person is not isolated. His problem is a problem of the whole, and he is just a guest star. He is just a crystalline point, you see, into which or through which the problem is manifested. So you can't just look at the problem very shallowly. You have to go far beyond the personal limit. And Jung certainly does it. He talks about the unconscious far more than the way that Freud and others talked about it. And it goes into what is called collective unconscious. Your consciousness is linked with the consciousness of others. First of all, your consciousness is linked with the consciousness of your family, even of your race, of human beings, even. If you look at it from the Buddhist point of view, you will say the consciousness of all living beings, of the whole. So all these are examples of what is called holistic approach. And this, as I say, is the approach in Buddhism. In fact, mental health, I can say in the deepest sense, is the concern of Buddhism. The Buddha is very often described as the great physician in the early suttas. Sometimes it's called even the great surgeon. And very often we find, even in the commentary material, we find the Buddha is described as a physician that looks at living beings and see what kind of medicine that the being needs, and then accordingly he would prescribe the medicine, i.e. the Dhamma. And this has been the approach throughout Buddhism. Even in meditation, you know, the teachers would prescribe a particular method. Now in a book called Jothidhamma, for instance, under samatha, under meditation of calming down the mind, there are various types of methods to be given to different types of mentality. And mentalities personality types are divided into various categories. For instance, the greed type, the hatred type, the delusion type, and so on. So, really, the Dhamma is the medicine. And the Buddha is the physician, or the greatest physician. And we can see it most clearly in the Buddha's formulation of the Four Noble Truths. The Buddha also asked me not to talk about things that is too abstruse. I think the Four Noble Truths is known to everybody, so I don't have to be afraid of that, to be scared of being criticized later, as the Sir usually does. Well, everybody knows the Four Noble Truths are, I think they're simple enough, right? First of all, dukkha, unsatisfactoriness. Perhaps this is one of the best translations. Suffering is not very good, though not entirely incorrect, very limited. Unsatisfactoriness of human existence. That is to say, unsatisfactory from the ultimate highest point of view. It is not to say that there is no happiness, but happiness is limited, is relative. It is not to say that there is no satisfaction. It is not to say that nothing is satisfactory, but these satisfactions are not so when you view it, look at it from a higher and higher standpoint. And from the standpoint of the enlightened Buddha, nothing at all is satisfactory, hence dukkha. Sometimes in the tradition, this word dukkha is also interpreted as something like an ill-fitted will do meaning something bad, ill, and here apparently interpreted as a kind of as adverbially. The wheel, the chakra, the wheel, if it is not properly fitted, what happens? The bullock cart will not go properly. It will be out of harmony. And life is like this. If the mind is not enlightened, the whole life is out of harmony. And when it's out of harmony, everything goes wrong. And hence we suffer. Hence there is dukkha. So this is the first truth. The Buddha says that unsatisfactoriness is rooted in our very existence. You can't avoid it. You can't say, no, I don't feel unsatisfied, I don't feel painful, I don't feel unhappiness, I'm very happy. But the Buddha would say, or Buddhism would say, that although you may have this relative happiness, but it is a form of disharmony also when you come to a higher standpoint. And you can't avoid it so long as you exist. That is why the five khandhas, the five aggregates are said to be dukkha itself. That is the meaning of it. What are the five khandhas? The five khandhas are constituents of existence. So long as you exist in time and space, you have to feel this. You cannot help feeling it. It's inborn, it's rooted in you. But the Buddha says that is not the whole truth. That is part of human nature, part of human existence. The other part of it is that we also spontaneously, naturally would like to overcome this. We look towards happiness, whether consciously or unconsciously. Sometimes you may find people trying to commit suicide, but they are really trying to find a solution, a negative one in this case, a nihilistic one in this case, but no doubt. But we are trying to find out, try ways out of our dilemma of existence. So, in the second truth, we have the analysis to find out the cause of it. And the Buddha says that we suffer, we live in disharmony, we are out of harmony because we have craving. And I will tell you later that we have craving because we have attachment to the self. That is more fundamental. I'll explain to you about this point. Then, not only that, Buddhism goes on, the Buddha goes on to say that in the third truth that there is a way out, so not to worry. There is happiness. You can overcome unsatisfactoriness. That is the third truth. The truth of cessation. Human beings can get out of his predicament. And then finally in the fourth truth, the exact concrete method is prescribed, is given, the Noble Eightfold Path. You have to live in this way, you have to interact in this way, you have to train your mind in this way, you have to meditate in this way, you have to integrate in this way, and so on. Finally, you will gain the harmony. Finally, you will be out of suffering. So this is, in brief, the Four Noble Truths. And when you look at it, I think it will be very clear that, in fact, it is this formulation of Four Noble Truths is very parallel to the practice of medicine. Just like when someone is sick, what happens? First of all, the doctor would look at him and examine him. Right? And there's a diagnosis. Oh yes, you have this disease, you have this sickness, this is a symptom. But secondly, he would go on to tell you, yes, it can be cured or it cannot be cured. Or it can be cured to some extent or fully. And then he would, Secondly, he will go on to explain to you what is the cause of that, if possible. Or sometimes if he doesn't explain to you, he would himself investigate. That is the second, that corresponds to the second truth. And then thirdly, he would declare whether it can be cured or cannot be cured, or to what extent it can be done so. And finally, surely he will not stop there. He will go on to give you a prescription. Take this medicine in this way, this is the dosage, and with the medicine you are cured. Now when you consider that the Four Noble Truths is the basic formulation of the Buddha's teaching, said to have been expounded in his very first sermon after his enlightenment, he would agree that really the whole of Buddhism can be said in a sense to be concerned with the getting rid of this disharmony of the total being, concerned with the achievement of happiness. That is why I say that Buddhism in that sense, when looking at it that way, is really their medicine par excellence. And that's why the Buddha very often says that my teaching is nothing but dukkha and dukkha nirodha, nothing but suffering or unsatisfactoriness and the eradication of suffering. And also that is why the Buddha is said to be the great physician. The Buddha says that we need not suffer really. It's true that we all suffer. It's true that everything is unsatisfactory from our point of view or for us. But it's just a symptom that something has gone wrong. A symptom that life is out of harmony. But we need not be like this. So, the Buddha shows us the way out. The way to get rid of this, not just a symptom, but to cure the disease. The Buddha, however, is very thorough. If you talk about holistic approach, I can say really that Buddhism is holistic approach par excellence. I cannot think of any other system, though my knowledge is limited, but I'm convinced that there is no system known in the world that is more holistic than Buddhism. You can see that. You know, the Buddha goes so far as to say that all ordinary worldlings are mad. Have you heard of that? Huh? Satte Purujana Unmattaka. Yes. I suppose there could be other words. Yes. Huh? Anyway, the idea is clear anyway. Maybe something like this. Out of harmony is the idea definitely. Anyway, the Buddha, how thorough he is when he says that all means all of you who think that you are so healthy, who think that now I'm not in the hospital, I'm here to listen to the Dhamma, I'm loving, and how can you say that I'm mad? No, I won't accept it. But the Buddha, yes, so long as you are what is called Puthujjana, ordinary worldlings, you are mad. Or you are, I remember doesn't like the word, or you are, how shall I say, out of balance, could even opposite could be the word, because it's the idea of topsy-turvy. You know, you turn things upside down. What is dukkha, you say, is good. What is unsatisfactory, you think that is satisfactory. What is impermanent, anicca, you think that everything is permanent. Of course, you say, no, I don't think that. I know, I've been to Dhamma class. I know that I do very well. But you know in your brain, your feeling is different. Or at least unconsciously. You like to think that, at least unconsciously, that things are going to be like this forever, that you can possess certain things, or whether a human being or properties forever. So, in that way, we are said to be upside down, really, and that is why the word Venice is used, upside down. Yes, that's right. That's why I said one thing, perhaps, I don't know, upset or topsy-turvy. We are topsy-turvy. But I want to say, I use the word mad because to contrast it, in the concept of health, mental health. You know what is meant by madness, you know. Today, a slightly milder term, maybe you say that we're all neurotic. I mean, you can't talk about cure without understanding what really health is. And according to Buddha, we are not healthy mentally. However much we like to think we are. We are not healthy because we all have greed, hatred, ignorance. All our reactions are influenced by that. We cannot help that. And Buddhism is very positive in this. We don't pretend, that once you accept Buddhism, once you have taken the three virtues, once you have put on the robe or something, or even once you have started meditation, you'll be all right, you'll be perfect because you are following the Noble Eightfold Path, etc. In spite of all your aspirations, all your correct thinking even, sometimes you cannot help falling into conflicts with your emotion. Why? Because everything in us is tinted, is colored, is influenced by greed, hatred, ignorance. Hence the Buddha says everybody is topsy-turvy. And elsewhere he says, in this world, it is difficult indeed to find any human being who is even for one moment, one moment, mentally healthy. It's a very strong and very clear, explicit statement. He says, not for one small moment. We can talk about someone as being mentally healthy indeed. So that is because Buddhism, being holistic, as I say, to the extreme, doesn't regard a person who is relieved of physical suffering or even ordinary mental suffering, even if he has gone out of the psychiatric clinic, it doesn't mean that he's healthy. No, it goes far beyond that. And all these have profound, or should have profound implications in medical practice. Take, for instance, when a Buddhist psychoanalyst tries to understand the mental sickness of a person, he not only would, as said a Gestalt psychoanalyst, examine the mental situation, condition of the family, not only that, or even the whole community. He would think of not just this life, but other lives. He would think in terms of samsaric existence. He would think in terms of karma. In other words, the Buddhist context of mental health is much, much larger. This is one thing, you see. And then secondly, as you know, the doctrine of conditioned co-arising or dependent origination, there are all kinds of translations for this. In other words, the principle or the law of conditionality, that an event, a phenomenon, arises not singly, but in dependence on a whole complex of factors. If you push that to the extreme, it would mean that every event of every living being is affected by the totality, not just this group, this family, this country, this race, even this human race, the totality of existence. That is why in later Buddhism in China and other places, or even in India, other ideas are developed, but these are not new ideas at all. These are from early Buddhism. It is based on the doctrine of dependent origination, the doctrine of one in all in one, nothing new in that. So that applies also to mental sickness. Your sickness, however infinitesimally, affects all the others. And the totality, the mentality of the totality affects you. So when you come to think about it, so you can appreciate when they say that, when some later Buddhists say that when one is enlightened, all is enlightened. I mean, at least in principle you can see the idea is also nothing new, you see. All can be explained on the principle of conditionality. So, supposing you were a Buddhist psychoanalyst or psychiatrist, you would look into all these factors which are ignored by others. Even by Jung, his collective unconscious doesn't go so far. Psychology, in any form that we know, doesn't go beyond anyway this life. So, therefore I say that Buddhism, the Buddhist approach to mental health is holistic par excellence. Now here I'd like to quote a little episode in one of the Buddhist scriptures, although it belongs to the later strata of Buddhist literature, but I think it's nice and beautiful enough to mention it here. Anyway, it tells a point. It doesn't matter from which group of literature it comes from. There is in Chinese Buddhism, there is a famous Upasaka called Vimalakirti. Some of you would have heard of him, right? And there is a discourse that is based on him. Actually, it's a beautiful drama. You see? I hope one day people can act it out even. Nicely. And mostly it consists of very witty dialogues. But witty not in the ordinary sense, but with profound, we say, spiritual significance. All the wordings there and, the dialogues between him and the others, Buddhists, appearing in the drama. Anyway, there's no time to tell the whole story. I want to make it very short. One day, this Upasaka, who's apparently even expected by the Buddha, according to the story, fell sick. So the Buddha went so far as to think that it is necessary to kind of inquire of his sickness or to send somebody on his behalf. So the Buddha began to ask, well, Rahula, would you like to go? No, Venerable Sir, no, I'm afraid I cannot do that because in the past, on one occasion, I was preaching on dukkha, anicca and all that, and this fellow came and hammered me with all his words and made me a fool, you see. And then in that kind of manners, all the others, disciples, were asked one by one. Finally, Sariputta was asked, and he was supposed to be symbolic of wisdom, and he also refused to go. And finally, one by one, the others were asked, and only, finally, to cut it short, Manjushri accepted it, but not without apprehension. Because the Buddha said that, and it seems that he was the only one to represent the Buddha, since the others didn't go. So he took it up. And so we see a whole procession of disciples and bodhisattvas and, of the Buddha going to go to this place of Vimakriti to inquire of his sickness. So when they are there, some very beautiful dialogues occurred also. But this one is the one that consensus. So he asked, Manjushri asked, Venerable Sir, I'm sorry, this is a Upasaka. Well, dear Upasaka, I suppose you can say it like this. We heard that you are sick. The Buddha also heard about that, and he has sent us to inquire of your sickness on his behalf. How are you getting on now? How is your sickness? Why are you sick? You know how did Vimakriti reply? Anybody has heard of that story? Please put up your hand. If you don't want to just put up your hand. You have heard of the story. He said, I am sick because beings are sick. Very profound statement. There's nothing Mahayana or anything special about it. It's Buddhistic, I would say. We look at it in a general way. I'm sick because beings are sick. I'm sick because all others are sick. I cannot singly be healthy. So I would say that this represents the concept of holism, holistic approach in the deepest sense. Everybody is in dukkha. Everybody is topsy-turvy. You are one of the totality. So by the principle of conditionality, you are also affected. So, in Buddhism, you have asked, how then can we get out of it? What is then the cure? I can tell you, of course, the Dhamma. But I can be more specific about that. We may say that we can be truly cured and truly healthy in the most holistic sense only when we get rid of the attachment to atta, to self. So long as you have that attachment, you will experience dukkha. Every dukkha comes from that. When you have the self as opposed to the others, what happens? You crave for that others. Or you get attached to that others. Or you react against that others. That is love, that is hatred, that is anger. Everything comes from that. Frustrations, etc., etc. Just imagine, although we have not been enlightened, I have not been myself certainly, but just imagine according to the Buddha's teaching, we can at least have a glimpse of what he's trying to say. Supposing we do not have that kind of self-centeredness in all our behaviors, in all our reactions, or in that case I wouldn't call it a reaction. You see? A reaction implies two polarities really. What will happen? If you really experience, not just think or understand in your brain or mind or book, if you really experience that you are one with others, is there anything to crave for? Is there anything to be hated or disliked or liked? Moreover, if you are really in that kind of enlightened attitude, surely the sufferings of the so-called others is your suffering. There is nothing to sacrifice. A sacrifice implies there's a self-concept. That's why I usually say that Buddhism does not teach self-sacrifice, although it's very often said like this. There is no self to begin with according to Buddhism in the highest sense. We can satisfy at all. The suffering of others is your suffering. The enlightenment of others is your enlightenment. So the concern for others is the concern for yourself. Everybody is linked up. Everybody, every being, every event, every Dhamma is conditioned by other conditions. Is paticca samuppanna, is arisen, independence on other factors. So it's only in that way, when we get rid of this self-attachment, that we could be truly sane, truly mentally healthy in the highest sense. And that is why the teaching of anatta is said to be the central teaching of Buddhism. Later on, it's developed into other philosophical elaborations like emptiness and all that, but really it all comes from there. It comes from the idea of anatta, which comes from the idea of conditionality. So this is the Buddhist view of human health. So long as you do not get rid of that, we cannot help having greed, hatred, ignorance, and hence cannot help being topsy-turvy, cannot help to be umatta, even or mad, if I might be allowed to use that word. We cannot help that. However much we like not to be, we can escape it. So, therefore I say the Buddhist concept of health is the more holistic. With that, I will conclude this. Now it is 1 hour. Yes, it's now o'clock. And yeah, I think on this type of points, it's better not to diversify your thinking too much. But I want to stress this point very, very much: the totalistic way of thinking, the holistic way of thinking, the thinking in terms of anatta, if you want to use a more traditional terminology, thinking in terms of paticcasamuppada, in terms of conditionality. Really, for instance, not only this, even in every behavior of ours, even in our speech, our actions, any action is not good in the absolute total sense unless it is a total action. That is to say, it involves a whole being, not just a body, not even just one part of the mind, but your whole being, which does not happen in all of us, or at least not generally. Sometimes we might have a glimpse of these kind of things, but that is far from being the usual case. Even our compassion may not be fully integrated. We have to accept it. Hence our personality, total being, is always split. In that sense. And therefore you can see why the Buddha says that we are not healthy mentally. We are split. And the Buddha Dhamma is precisely the means, the medicine, to bring about the integration of all our, if you like, psychic energies, our total being, so that every action of ours, whether it's body, speech, and mind, is a total action. And that is the holistic approach of Buddhism. Right. So we can maybe spend some time, although 1 hour has passed, we can still spend a little bit of time for discussion. But I request, as usual, you to be relevant in your discussion. Don't go on to other irrelevant topics, because there is no end to it. If you are not clear what I have said, if you want me to elaborate on certain things, or repeat or explain further, you do so. There's a question.
You're saying that we see our mental problems as a holistic issue. I would rather...
No, I don't like the way you word it. I see as a holistic issue. No. I'm saying that the Buddhist approach to mental health is holistic, and in fact holistic in the best sense.
But I would think it is individualistic.
Why? You are talking about Buddhist approach individualistic. Okay, please explain.
It has to be individualistic because the Buddha's teaching itself is that we have to work towards our mental purity.
Okay. Yeah.
So if the emphasis is on the individual who feels himself,
okay.
then what should be individualistic?
Right. Please tell me what you mean by being okay. If that is your expression of being individualistic, then I would not agree. What is meant by being an individual in Buddhism? An individual, as I have said, if you understand what I've said, is not an absolutely independent entity. That doesn't deny the individualistic aspect. Individual aspect, I would say, is a better word. Individual aspect. It doesn't say that you have to wait for others to purify you. There's no indication like that. No. We are talking about the the total effect on the one and the effect on one on the total. It's quite a different thing. But in the oneness, the individuality is not blurred, not obliterated. You see? It's not a vague concept of oneness, one where there is no individuality. But unity in diversity, diversity in unity. I may again quote another Buddhist writer, Govinda, joining to you. You see? When he compares the Buddhist philosophy to the Hindu philosophy, he says something to this effect, that now normally we would think that they are the same because we talk about, we seem to be talking about monism, you know, oneness. Just like the Hindu would say, a drop merging into the ocean. You know what I'm talking about. This Atma, you know, going to the Brahma, going to the all and all that, you see. But Buddhism, he says, is quite different. He says, if you like, you can, following this line of analogy, you can talk about the ocean coming at the same time to that individual drop, to you. Even in enlightenment, when you experience selflessness, it does not mean that your individuality does not exist. Surely the Buddha is a true individual par excellence. He's an individual in the sense that he is not affected by others as we do. He is not emotionally dependent on others. He goes beyond this caste system, he goes beyond all this violence and all that thing, all the craving. So to say that the Buddhist approach is holistic, to talk about the effect of the all on the individual, and vice versa, doesn't at all imply that Buddhism does not tell you to have your individual effort. No. Not at all. Does that answer your question? Oh, tell me, please tell me what... Okay, tell me. Why do you think that Buddhism is individualistic then, after all my explanation?
Based on the Buddha's saying, at one time he was saying that there's no need to go all the places, you just within.
Yeah, that is only because the within, the you is the totality. I hope you get that point. You see?
I cannot connect the individuality with the whole. That is
a problem, and that is being very un-Buddhistic, if I may say like that. That is the precise problem. Now let me ask you like this. Would you agree that Buddha teaches conditionality? You know what I mean by conditionality? Everything is conditional on every others. Right? Put it very simple case, even you talk about individual purification and all that. Yeah, doesn't talk about, or at least everybody talks about selfish purification. No. Because when you are purified, you affect the whole. The Buddha is only one individual, but he affects the whole of humanity. You see? And society affects you also. If you want to practice Buddhism, meditation, imagine you live in a society that is, let's say, intolerant, or everybody is always drunk, nobody thinks spiritually. I would say that you have little chance of progress. So everywhere, from every angle, in very simple way, we see the Buddha's teaching of the emphasis on conditionality. Other factors affecting the so-called individual factor. The only thing I'm saying is that it does not mean at all, unless you show me how it can be made to mean, it doesn't mean at all that you can bypass individual effort. Now, your thinking is a sum total of all kinds of influences in you. The books you have read, the lectures you have attended, and discussions you have held, and so on. Yeah. He is. Now, my point is that he is the individual at the same time he affects the whole. You see, we are all affected. Today, after today, this effect is being felt. And that's why I became a monk. That's why you become Buddhist. And that's why we have this Buddhist society here. You see? Even the very language you use, English, i.e., the words you use are all conditioning factors. So you think that I'm an individual speaking like this, but you have been conditioned culturally, linguistically, in every way. But that doesn't deny your own individuality at the same time. It's just the interrelationship between the two, if you like. Very interesting. If you are alone here in this world, can you purify your mind? No. My question is, if you are the only human being in this world, how are you going to purify your mind? Oh, now you want to join with animals. You forget humans, you want to join with animals. So what I am going to tell you, there must be some others. They contribute a lot for our mental purification. They may irritate and provoke and disturb us. Then we get the chance to train our minds, discipline our minds. So if you can regard their disturbances as something that they contribute for you to train your mind. We do read that parables I have mentioned in my latest book. Indian missionary who went to Tibet to introduce Buddhism as a Dhammaduta, Dipankara Sri Jnana. He has taken with him an attendant for preparing food. But this man is a real stupid man. He never does things according to his guidance or advice. He does something else. Every day he does something against his wish. Having seen this situation, some of those Tibetans advise him, why do you want to kill this man? He is not doing his work properly. Why need to send him back? Then this monk said, actually he is not my servant. He is my teacher. Every time when he makes mistake, I get the chance to train, discipline, practice patience, tolerance, understanding, kindness, compassion. See how many things he contributes. That is what he says.
I mean, for instance, if you want to practice, let's say, dana, right? To whom are you going to practice dana if there are no living beings in connection with you? You can't perfect it. As Venerable Sir said, tolerance. Tolerance implies differences. Implies others. Otherwise, tolerate whom? You see? All your virtues are perfected or can be practiced only vis-a-vis others. That is a part of the teaching of conditionality. So you can't kind of sit down and think, I am purifying myself and sit down in your room, you see? I don't think that will work. Even by doing that, you cannot escape the influence, because as I've pointed out to you, the very way your mind works is largely conditioned by your childhood upbringing, up to the point when you go to the room and close yourself up. And all the things you have read and you have taught and all that, you see, in conjunction with what you heard from others. You cannot isolate yourself out in an absolute way. That's right.
I mean,
Exactly. I too.
most people say they understand this doctrine on no self. It's very easy to understand intellectually
That's right.
or conceptually in our mind. But to see it, to realize it, what's it?
Yeah. Re-insight.
Level or at the experiential level. To experience it is the most difficult thing to do.
It is so difficult that the Buddha says that we are all not enlightened and we are upside down because of that. If it's so easy, everybody will be saints. You see?
They say if you really do these things to Vipassana meditation, you will be able to see experiences. And when you do that, you can take the first stage in
No, I think that you have mentioned it quite well. That is quite true, especially the point that it's only too easy to think that we have understood, you know. But having understood is one thing. Having a true spiritual insight into that doctrine is quite another. And that's why we have this kind of conflict all the time with us. Because to know is one thing, to be is another. It's only when knowing and being coincide, fully integrated, that there is no split, no self-centeredness. That is the very final aim of Buddhism. Certainly is true. You're talking about this Vipassana, you want me to say something? Yeah. That's right. All depends on what you mean by the practice of Vipassana. So, I don't like to reach the general statement on this. There are all kinds of practice of Vipassana, all kinds of theories about it. But one thing I can say is, if you mean practice of Vipassana in just a general sense, practice of insight, sure, I fully agree that, as you have said, without true insight, no matter how much you understand from the books or thinking, you cannot overcome it. Emotionally, unconsciously, you will still be attached to yourself. So, to gain that, you must go through a vigorous spiritual training, mental training. Call it Vipassana or whatever. It must be a real spiritual practice of meditation. I have no right to talk about different forms of Vipassana as a better student, because I know, for instance, nowadays there are, I'm not going to name them. For instance, just give one instance. In a certain country, there's a movement of Vipassana which says that you don't have to do this, you have to practice this, you don't have to do meditation, you don't have to follow this step-by-step method. Just start straight and be yourself. And so when you want to ask a question, the person or the teacher would say, well, who are you asking? Are you aware of it? So, you know what I mean? It has come to a kind of mental dream, a verbal dream of it. And I'm sure that this type of approach is very much influenced by the Zenist approach in the West. People think that they are enlightened, you know. So Vipassana, in some circle at least, has come to be like this, come to be debased like this. So that type of approach I personally would not recommend. But therefore I cannot generalize. You see? It's a mixing up, if you like, of, for the sake of our discussion, two levels of truth. The level of the enlightened mind, the level of the ordinary beings. What is true pertaining to, let's say, the Buddha, is not true to you as a psychological being in time and space. You understand? Now, I heard about this, what I've said, actually I heard myself, that teacher has asked an Australian Buddhist who tried to complain about the need to practice and all that. And apparently a lady teacher said, wait, tell me, who is that I who is practicing or speaking? But I told the Australian, you could have very well asked the same question. Who is that I who is asking me? I mean, it's the enlightened eye. You see? You see what I mean? It has become a game. An imagination of you as being at the level of the Buddha. Sometimes it can be quite sincere, a sincere delusion. But if you mean by Vipassana practice the general practice of getting through some concentration and then going on to insight and seeing things as dukkha, anicca, anatta, of course it's the Buddha's teaching. And surely you need that type of training, not just book learning about anatta or thinking about anatta.
Still got time. Regarding these questions, Vipassana, just now Mr. Tan mentioned, unless we practice Vipassana meditation, we never get the clear visions or understanding of this concept of anatta or doctrine of soullessness. What is the meaning of this word? Vipassana. All of you know about the two methods. This meditation was a very common subject in India at that time. Before his enlightenment, he also practiced, developed his mind, gained psychic development, but he realized this is not the method for gaining enlightenment and to see the end of suffering. So, after gaining his enlightenment, by getting into the correct path, he advised and introduced this meditation method, which is called Vipassana. Earlier, in India, people never heard anything about Vipassana meditation. That is the only Buddhist meditation introduced by the Buddha. Why? Only three characteristics, anicca, dukkha, anatta. In one of his discourses, the Buddha has said, one who knows the meaning of these three characteristics, anicca, dukkha, anatta, knows the 45 years teachings of the Buddha. That is enough. Not necessary to study anything else. Try to analyze the nature of impermanence. Why? Try to analyze the nature of unsatisfactoriness, friction, clashes, and suffering. Try to understand by analyzing whether there is any permanent entity which can remain forever without any changes, either in this world or any part of the universe. Even scientifically, Albert Einstein analyzed the whole universe and pointed out, when you analyze completely, there is no world, no matters or elements, and then where is the world? Where is the universe? So this is very growth formed. So, anicca, dukkha, anatta, for us to analyze by using our analytical knowledge, that is called Vipassana, a specific way of analysis by using penetrating knowledge, not as they are or as they appear. At the moment we use all our five senses to understand things as they appear, only outlook. But we never use that analytical knowledge to penetrate, to analyze, and to understand as they really are. So why it is difficult for us to understand the nature of anatta? Because we never analyze. So meditation does not mean that we must spend our time all the while closing our eyes and sit down in a corner and creating daydreams. In fact, this is a good opportunity for me to reveal. Today I received a letter from one of our devotees. I was thinking whether it is advisable for me to announce. Although Reverend Dhammajyoti is not a stranger to us, in front of him, I don't think it is out of way for us to announce this. After listening to a very nice sermon to calm your mind, to maintain healthy mind, it is very unfortunately I had to inject little bit of something which creates mental itch. In that letter, that devotee says, during our Friday talks, some people go here and there and disturb the devotees, try to canvass people and criticize this temple. This is not a suitable place, you must go to such and such place, and that place is better than this place. And this man who has written this letter, I don't know whether man or woman, he says we should not allow such people to come and disturb the devotees in the temple. At the same time, they come and do some business also while the Friday talk is going on. They do not attend to this talk. I do not know whether it is right or wrong. So, now, some people say that I do not meditate because I don't demonstrate my meditation to you. Every minute I am meditating, my dear friends. Every time when you enter into my room, you can see what I am doing there. Either reading or writing or thinking. Not for my own benefit, not for my personal gain, but to do some service to others. When I concentrate, I try to analyze. Even today, this whole afternoon, with Mr. Ao, he always come and help me. We were discussing this anicca, dukkha, anatta, to use a suitable English term. How to analyze these three, anicca, dukkha, anatta. So we try to analyze and analyze and analyze and get a better understanding. So when we get this clear understanding, we strengthen our mind, then our, what we call, silly ideas, misconception, stupidity that we maintain in our mind slowly fade away. That is the real meditation. So meditation does not mean that we must create daydreams and come and tell others and drag others, come and practice there. That there you can get the enlightenment immediately, instant enlightenment. Please don't disturb these innocent devotees. Those who have studied Buddhism from A, B, C, D, in this temple, after attending to this talk and reading some book, when they get little bit of knowledge, they behave like pig-headed and bull-headed people to show others that they also know everything. they should not disturb the devotees. Many of these devotees are innocent people, and very easily they can mislead these people. And they also talk about meditation by poisoning these innocent people's mind. So Vipassana, just now I mentioned, whenever we get the chance to see the world, what is happening, living examples are there for us to analyze our experience, our knowledge, our understanding. Use this channel. Then you can see why this impermanency, why things cannot remain without changing, why always unhappiness, unpleasant, unsatisfactoriness. These are the reasons. This is called analytical knowledge. In the end, is there anything to remain as permanent entity in this world, or in heaven or hell or anywhere? Then understanding appears. This existence, this is an illusion, this is Maya. This formation of the life and the world and everything that which exists are nothing but illusions. Cheat our eyes. Things goes against our will, our wish, our anxiety. Then we get disappointment. That is called dukkha. If you can understand this, we never create that dukkha. We never allow that emotional feeling to disturb the mind. That is called understanding of anicca, dukkha, anatta. Unless you analyze in this way, you never realize, just glorify that you also meditate, that's all. Thank you. Five minutes more. Last question. Last question. Ladies did not ask any questions? Yes.
I like to kind of supplement what the Venerable has to say. I think there's a very important point there, that today there are many Buddhist practices which have become attachments. I wouldn't say that all these attitudes are not good. I can't, as I say, I don't like to generalize, I can't generalize. But there is a phenomenon like this, at least among them. You become attached to a particular format and think that you only have the right method. For example, like meditation. You have to meditate like this, otherwise you're not supposed to say you're meditating. You cannot say you're meditating. And a lot of it, as I said, comes from even from the West. You see? Like this interest in Zen and philosophizing of Zen. This is one thing. People who read English, now this is a very good example of conditioning. You read English, you are English speaking, you are English educated, you get this idea into you, here and there and all that from people. And you think that this is the right Dhamma and all the other things that have been done are all wrong. These are very strong attachments. But we have to be objective and very discriminated in this. Sometimes they can become a very strong movement because their approach can be very appealing. Like I mentioned one example, you see, somewhere this type of Vipassana movement, which teaches that you don't have to do any other thing, including the type of investigation and critical thinking that the Venerable Sir has explained. You see? All you have to do is just be aware of the present, they say. There's one Indian thinker who used to say like that also, and he had a large following. Be in the present, he asked you. Pure awareness. And so on. Well, very well, these things are true, but as I said, true pertaining to the Buddha. But I'm not sure whether it applies to everybody. If it indeed applies to that particular thinker. But then people are attracted to this because these are very challenging. You see? And they say, oh yes, this thinker has all the Buddhist thoughts there. He is a Buddhist even. Even in Sri Lanka, I found many great Buddhist scholars who follow this thinker. Now these are examples, you see. That is why the Buddha said, whenever there is a teaching in the world, you have to remember, including Vipassana and all this, these are modern methods. I'm not saying that they are not good. I myself, to confess to you, I myself also am practicing meditation, and I do even sit down and do walk and all that also. But I would not go so far as to say that that is the only way to practice meditation. Unless still in the way that they would say. Because these methods are good or maybe not good, but whatever they are, good or bad, they are all modern methods in very recent time. So, if you want to find the authority, surely the best is not here, the best is in the Buddha's teaching, in the discourses. See how the Buddha lived, see how he teaches.
Please bring back your normal way of thinking, your mental health. Now is the time we are going to radiate our kindness and compassion towards all the devas and our departed one. Please get ready. Satthaja bhummattha deva naga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva cirang rakkantulo ittavata ca ammehi sambatam punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya devo asatu kalena sassa sampatti hetu ca pito bhavatu loko ca raja bhavatu idam me jnati nang hotu sukhita huntu jnatayo imina punya kammena mami bala samagamo satang samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattiya.